My wife, Brenda, and I joined UUSG about 3 years ago. And on our first visit, we found ourselves to be immersed in a service that featured what I call the Hootenanny Boys. That was Tracy McFadden, Tom Zimmerman, Andy Montgomery, and John Rosecrans. I'm going to call you all out. Their music immediately and totally hooked us into this fresh and vibrant community. And thus, that was without even a Godzilla outfit. I think there were some cowboy hats. Anyway, we enrolled in the UU introductory class and continued attending additional services, which were replete with great and diverse music, and with bountiful sermons, witty sermons, and we signed the book without any further hesitation. You know, one of the things I really like about UUSG are its banners. It says, many paths, one church. We all look at that every Sunday. But today I want to focus on my own personal path, because you might summarize it as a journey of a ping pong ball. My faith journey began at the Unitarian Fellowship in DeKalb when I was about 9 or 10. And my parents were really active in that fellowship. They helped to design a building which was a disaster, but they still helped to do it. They also, my mother was active in producing and editing the fellowship newsletter, like the Pioneer here. And in my preteens and in my early teens, their religious education classes, if that's what they were called, they helped to set within me a framework of a more open-minded approach to spiritual and philosophical matters, which for a 11-year-old is really important. Anyway, in my high school years, my family moved to California, so it kind of disrupted my Unitarian formation, if you want to call it that. And I had a couple of starts and stops in my pursuit of higher education when I was out in California, but I wound up at Cal State Fresno to finish my undergraduate degree. And while there, I fell for a very lovely young woman. I'm sorry, Brenda, it wasn't you. She was Catholic. And her family somehow embraced me, this heathen UU who was dating their daughter. And she had 4 brothers, by the way, and I didn't get beat up at all. But they introduced me to what I considered to be, at that time, a deeper form of spiritual life. They sang Alleluias around the dinner table, and that just blew me away. I dated this young lady for a couple of years, and I graduated before she did. And we tried to maintain a long-distance relationship while I went off to grad studies at Ohio State. And while there at Ohio State, I began to attend the Catholic Newman Center. I entered into the RCIA, which is the Rite of Christian Initiation for Adults, and I was baptized and confirmed. Well, as you know, long-distance relationships are pretty hard to hold on to and maintain, and ours fell apart, which essentially left me a single guy and a Catholic, a religion that I'd sort of adopted for her, and I had to carry that along. Well, after grad school, I accepted work in the Washington, D.C. area, and I spiritually wobbled for a while in my newly adopted Catholicism. Ultimately, I found a rural congregation, and I grew more deeply involved with them. And in my mid-30s, friends at that church started asking me funny questions like, would I ever consider becoming a priest? Well, that suggestion initially struck me as a dumb idea. Why would you do that? I had a great committed, career with NASA. Why would I want to do that? Then somebody said 4 words to me that were probably the worst thing anyone could have said. Just pray about it. Well, after 3 years of praying and of discerning, I surrendered, and I entered seminary at age 40. It was a 5-year course of study, and I graduated from seminary near Boston, and I was ordained in 2001 by the Archbishop of Baltimore. I guess you could call that 2001, A Space Odyssey, being a NASA guy. I served as associate pastor for 2 parishes, and on a couple of occasions, I'd tell parishioners that I was probably the most Unitarian priest they would ever know. All in all, 11 years of seminary and priestly life had its definite high points. I can't deny that. Weddings, even funerals, being close with people in hospitals. I mean, there were so many things that were just tremendously enriching. And truth be told, it formed me into a broader human being, taking me well beyond my nerdy focus of science and technology. Part of me regrets some of those ministerial years, especially because they had such an impact on splitting my career in half. And I know that I would have excelled even further had I stayed, continuous at NASA. But, part of me doesn't regret it because it's part of who I am now. Well, I'm not going to dwell on the inner politics of the Archdiocese except to say that I found it necessary to depart pastoral work. And I went back to NASA where my old colleagues received me with open arms, glad to have me back. Well, Brenda and I connected about 3 years after I went back to NASA. She wasn't the fault of me leaving the priesthood. I want to make that clear. And when we got married, I joyfully donned the status of being excommunicated. Because priests aren't supposed to get married. Well, some changes in our lives brought us here to the Fox Valley, and it took us a few years before we discovered this hidden gem, this wonderful community, this wonderful set of friends at UUSG. So, have you spotted the ping pong ball yet? I went from Unitarian Universalism to the depths of Catholicism, and I came back. I moved from Illinois to California, then to the East Coast, and then I came back to Illinois. I went from working at NASA to serving in ministry, and then back to NASA again. And then I came back together to marry this woman who I had roller skated with when I was 12 years old, and I held her hand then. So, my path is very nonlinear, totally nonlinear. It's a set of circles and bounces and back and forth. And I am thrilled to have completed my own set of circuits, even if some of them might have been short circuits. As others have shared in testimonies in previous years, UUSG, we found, provides a rooted, committed, thriving, and loving community to be a part of and to call home. We call it home. We were reminded by Kathy McFadden last week that we are a generous community, and that's the whole theme of our pledge drive this year. We each bring our own unique paths and our own gifts, and we endeavor to blend them all into one amazing church. But I think I won the ping pong game. And I'm setting down my paddle because I think I'm going to stick around for a while, because being a part of UUSG is just absolutely wonderful.